Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Adi Gopijana Pallabha Girivara Dadi Gopijana Pallabha Girivara Dadi Jasodanandana Brajachanaranjana Jasodanandana Brajachanaranjana Jamunatiravanachadi Jamunatiravanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Adi Radha Madhava Kunjabi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Adi Madhava Kunjabi Adi Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasodanandana Brajachanaranjana Jasodanandana Brajachanaranjana Jamunatiravanachadi Jamunatiravanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Adi Madhava Kunjabi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Adi Madhava Kunjabi Adi Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Parivajapacharya Astatarasata Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavarind Ki Granta Raj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Gaura Premanandi. Text numbers 36. Huh? 36 has got a purport that's one sentence long. As many verses as I like. Okay. Text 36. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Tasyai Vachanti Kalpo Bhud. Kalpo Bhud. Let's try that again. Tasyai Vachanti Kalpo Bhud. Yam Padam Yad Padmam Abhichakshate Yadharir Nabi Sarasa Asiloka Saroraham Tasyai Vachante Kalpo Bhut Yad Padmam Abhichakshate Yadharir Nabi Sarasa Asiloka Saroraham.
Tasyaiva chante kalpobhut Padmam abhichakshate Yadhare navisarasya Srilokam saroruham Tasyaiva chante kalpobhut
Ladies? Tasya of the Brahma Kalpa. Eva, certainly. Cha, also. Ante, at the end. Kalpaha, millennium. Abhut, came into existence. Yam, which? Padmam, Padma, Abhichakshate, is called. Yat, in which? Harehe, of the personality of Godhead. Nabhi, in the navel. Sara Saha, from the reservoir of water. Asit, there was. Loka, of the universe. Saroruham, lotus. Translation, the millennium which follows the first Brahma millennium is known as the Padma Kalpa because in that millennium, the universal lotus flower grew out of the navel reservoir of water of the personality of Godhead Hari. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The millennium following the Brahma Kalpa is known as Padma Kalpa because the universal lotus grows in that millennium. The Padma Kalpa is also called the Pitri Kalpa in certain Puranas, text 37, translation. O descendant of Bharata, the first millennium in the second half of the life of Brahma is also known as the Varaha millennium because the personality of Godhead appeared in that millennium as the hog incarnation purport. The different millenniums known as Brahma, Padma, and Varaha kalpas, appear a little puzzling for the layman. There are some scholars who think that these kalpas, who think these kalpas to be one and the same. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti, the Brahma kalpa in the beginning of the first half appears to be the Padma kalpa. We can, however, simply abide by the text and understand that the present millennium is in the second half of the duration of the life of Brahma. I'm not going to touch that one. 38, translation. The duration of the two parts of Brahma's life, as above mentioned, is calculated to be equal to 1 nimesha, less than a second, for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is unchanging and unlimited and is the cause of all causes of the universe. Nice long purport. The great sage Maitreya has given a considerable description of the time of different dimensions, beginning from the atom up to the duration of the life of Brahma. Now, he attempts to give some idea of the time of the unlimited personality of Godhead. He just gives a hint of his, meaning the Lord's, unlimited time by the standard of the life of Brahma. The entire duration of the life of Brahma is calculated to be less than a second of the Lord's time, and it is explained in Brahma Samhita 548 as follows. Yasyaika nishvata takala matavalambhya Jivanti loma vidaja jagadandadataha Vishnur mahaziha yasha kalavishesho Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship Govinda, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes, whose plenary portion is Mahavishnu. All the heads of the innumerable universes, meaning the Brahmas, live only by taking shelter of the time occupied by one of his breaths. The impersonalists do not believe in the form of the Lord, and thus they would hardly believe in the Lord sleeping. Their idea is obtained by a poor fund of knowledge, semicolon. They calculate everything in terms of man's capacity. They think that the existence of the Supreme is just the opposite of active human existence. Because the human being has senses, the Supreme must be without sense perception. Because the human being has a form, the Supreme must be formless. Because the human being sleeps, the Supreme Lord must not sleep. The Srimad Bhagavatam, however, does not agree with such impersonalists. It is clearly stated here that the Supreme Lord rests in Yoga Nidra, as previously discussed. And because he sleeps, naturally he must breathe. And the Brahma Samhita confirms that without his breathing period, within his breathing period, innumerable Brahmas take birth and die. Paragraph. There is complete agreement between Srimad Bhagavatam and Brahma Samhita. Eternal time is never lost, along with the life of Brahma. It continues, but it has no ability to control the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because the Lord is the controller of time. In the spiritual world, there is undoubtedly time, but it has no control over activities Time is unlimited. And the spiritual world is also unlimited, since everything there exists on the absolute plane. So if Brahma Samhita and Srimad Bhagavatam are identical, it means one breath of the Lord is one nimesha. Correct? You caught it? I hope you have as many astute persons here. And what's nimesha? Less than a second. There's another reference in this chapter, the blink of an eye. We discussed this a little bit the other day. Maybe it wasn't here. Kshana. Buddhist doctrine is chana vijnanavad. That is, consciousness, they in their doctrine is vijnana is consciousness. Not exactly the word that we use, but chanak vijnanavad, the doctrine, vada, of consciousness is momentary. Chanak vijnana. Because before that there isn't, and then after that there isn't, so all there is the moment. So nimesha is something similar. I forget which divisions, how many of this make some one of those, and how many of those make some of the next one. But they're all less than a second, whatever the divisions are. So back to this text. This text 38, second line, nimesha upacharyate, nimesha upacharyate, nimesha upacharyate, less than a second, nimesha upacharyate is so measured. And that's the duration. What is being measured is the duration of Brahma's life. Dvi parada. Because one parada and two paradas together make half and the other half of Brahma's day. So Brahma's day. Brahma's day is one nimesha, is measured by one nimesha of the Lord's kalo yam dvi paradhadhyo nimesha upacharyate. Brahma's life is measured by one nimesha of the Supreme Lord Hari. And in Brahma Samhita, he's quoting it, it's one breath, one of the Lord's breaths of Mahavishnu. So he exhales and he inhales. The universes expand, the universes are withdrawn for the duration of one breath. So one breath is the duration of Brahma's life. And one nimesha is the duration of Brahma's life. A equals B, B equals C, A equals C. So that nimesha, less than a second, of Mahavishnu equals the duration of Brahma's life. Now, I'm anticipating we're going to have some smart students here in the audience here, and they're going to say, wait a minute. The Lord has eternal time, so what's a second of eternal time? Anyway, some of you wanted to ask that one, right? At least you're going to ask that one. It's figurative. It's to give us an idea. It's not that so many seconds makes So many minutes make so many hours makes the life of Mahavishnu, as if he comes into existence and goes out of existence with time as we know it, because he doesn't come and go. What does he do? He manifests and he becomes not manifest. What? Yeah. The word that's used is kala. There's kala and there's kala. Kala means, it's translated different ways. An expansion of an expansion. That makes it easier. Prabhupada's language is a portion of a plenary portion. That makes it a little more puzzling. Plenary portion is like Balaram, Swayam Prakash. Swayam Prakash. He, Balaram, is Swayam Prakash. He's in that category. There's like all this technical language in Chaitanya Charitamrita. If you want, you can go and look at it. Swayam Prakash. It means he's the Prakash, or the manifest form of Swayam, Bhagavan. It also means that he manifests Swayam Bhagavan. It's the Guru function that he manifests Swayam Bhagavan, Swayam Prakash. And then Swayam Prakash manifests expansions of himself. First the Chaturvyuha and Narayan, and then from Narayan the forms of Vishnu. So Kala, a portion of Swayam Prakash. So what's the distinction between Swayam Prakash and Swayam Bhagavan? The distinction, expressed in simple language, is their color. And otherwise, the same. Now there is another difference, and that other difference is a detail, but it's nice. Swayam Prakash is in the mood of service of Swayam Bhagavan. Always. He is equal, and yet take the position, by his very nature, take the position of servant. So Balaram loves to serve. And does he serve? He serves in all the rasas. And Balaram expands himself in different ways so he can serve in different rasas. And it's quite okay because he's Balaram. He's Swayam Prakash. And all others' mood of service are derived from him. Resting within him or upon him. And that's living entities. They're angsas of the Supreme that also bear the same mood of service. And they're angsas, they're parts, fragmental parts. Then there's Kala. And Kala is the Vishnu forms. They're expansions of the expansion. And specifically, the Vishnu forms, Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshay Vishnu, Kshirodakshay Vishnu, they're eternal, and they have a function. What's that function? In relation to creation, they manifest, they maintain, and they withdraw. Especially they're noted for their maintenance. But even the ability to manifest and to withdraw, the function of Brahma and Shiva, are derived from Vishnu. And conversely, they don't have the capacity to create a universe without being invested with the potency to do that. And to destroy, there's no independence of any entity upon the one supreme independent. They're dependent. And they have a function. Vishnu's function is in relation to creation. let's say Narayan doesn't have that function, or it's the function of the Vishnu Tattvas, the Purusha avatars. And they're eternal, but sometimes in a manifest state, like when the universes are withdrawn. When the universes are withdrawn, because that's an event in time, as we know it, then the manifestation of the universe is gone. Wait a minute. What about the planet in which Kshirodakshay Vishnu resides? Is that withdrawn? That part remains. Not created, not destroyed. But it can be manifest, not manifest. Potentially, because it's a potency of the Supreme Lord for the purpose of creation. Gets a little delicate. That which is eternal being manifest and sometimes not manifest, but it's quite okay. Delicate is fine with spiritual subjects. And so back to the verse at hand. During one less than a second of Lord Vishnu is the life of Brahma. But that less than a second is figurative. It's not literal. Read it again. Maitreya now attempts to give some idea of the time of the unlimited personality of Godhead. He just gives a hint of his unlimited time. So unlimited means unlimited. It means there isn't time as we know it, because time as we know it has, however long it is, even kshanak, has a beginning and an end. So but the time of the Supreme Lord is without limit. Everything in relation to the Supreme Lord is unlimited, because all of the absolute nature, and therefore this perplexing how to understand a topic of eternal time and events that occur, or Leela that occurs within the realm of eternal time. It's something that our little binary processor can't figure out. And just shrug your shoulders and say, okay, it's eternal, and I don't understand it. And it's okay that I don't understand it. There's events that are eternal. There's no beginning and end. What's an event that doesn't have a beginning and an end? Nitya Lila, spiritual events. Sounds like double talk. But it's not nirvachaniya, it's not explicable. One can speak about it, but to realize it is different than speaking about it. It's an event that doesn't have beginning and end. But it's an event. So this is, the whole chapter is calculation of time from the atom. And as Prabhupada has paraphrased in the purport, from the beginning up to this point, it's just time as we know it, past, present, future type of time, not eternal time, but past, present, and future time. And from the smallest unit of time to the universal unit of time, the duration of the universe, to prararthas. And then it goes down into what's a prarartha and what's two prararthas and what names do they have and what happens during them. It's a science. And just this morning I was hearing Prabhupada say, this is not a religion. It's a science. Then he went on to say it's about God, but that because it's about God doesn't make it a religion. It's a science. From the discussion yesterday, verifiable, as in science is verifiable. People believe in science because you can reproduce it again and again and again, and therefore verifiable, therefore believable. We don't need to replicate yesterday's discussion, but it's on authority we accept it, because to understand anything there has to be an authority for that understanding. And we accept the authority of the Vedas. And there's reason behind our accepting the authority of the Vedas. But back to the principle, you have to accept some authority to have knowledge. Pramana is needed for knowledge. Evidence is needed for knowledge. So what's the evidence? The Vedas. What's the Vedas? We heard yesterday. Vedas it's manifest from the Supreme Lord at the time of Brahma's appearance, at the time of each universe. There's this sound, the Vedas, within the universe for Brahma to hear and to deliver. We accept that because the source is the infallible source. And then comes this whole thing. Why take knowledge from from a fallible source? Because that's not what knowledge is. It has mistakes, subject to illusion, cheating, etc., imperfect senses. So that's not what real knowledge is, and we don't rely on that. They can say something, but it's not reliable. In course of time, the science theory has to adjust and then adjust and then adjust, because it's imperfect. So what's knowledge that's perfect? It's knowledge that comes from the perfect. So is that just your belief system? Well, in one sense, yes. In another sense, no. And the other sense, no, is it's verifiable. But you have to have a capable person to verify. That's a whole other. Without brahmanas, qualified brahmanas, then someone that's not a qualified brahmana, can they verify? Or for that matter, disprove? When there's a qualified brahmana, it can be verified through the agency of a qualified brahmana. And therefore, how important? That's 3 times. How important are qualified brahmanas? And they're quite rare. Manushanam sahasreshu kasyad yatati siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam kasyan peti mam tattva. Hardly one knows me in truth. So there's levels of qualification of brahmanas, but the most qualified, very rare. But they have the capacity to demonstrate and to experience the effects of that demonstration. Very special. And one of the references that Prabhupada would make is not only the Vedas say, but stalwart acharyas through the course of history, they accept. This one, that one, the other one, the other one, the other one. They all are from different schools, but they accept the authority of the Vedas. So we accept the authority of the Vedas on the strength of the superlative authorities through all the course of history of mankind. They accept the Vedas, and they accept that Krishna is the purpose of the Vedas. Knowing Krishna is the purpose of the Vedas. So one more time. How can you know anything? anything about anything. How can you know? And according to Vedic principle, you have to have proof or pramana. Pramana has different translations, but one of them is proof, evidence, authority. Proof. What's the proof? Then you can go through, there's different direct experience and sense perception and inference and logic, and then there's Shabda Pramana. Aparusheya Shabda Pramana. And then by that method you can know. And without that method you're not going to know. You'll get some idea, but you're not going to know. I'm bringing this up in part because it fits the topic. The topic is something that, how are we going to verify the time it takes for the sun to cross one atom? And in so many of those, and so many of those, and you get the life of Brahma that is for the duration of one blink, or less than a moment, of Mahavishnu. How can you verify that? On the authority of the Vedas. And qualified brahmanas are the access to that proper understanding of the Vedas. And without that authority, the Brahmanically qualified persons, then we're left guessing. Or then we have to come up with, we say that's not it, then what's it? And then you get another imperfect model, whichever it might be. Then you still don't know. If you're honest, you don't know. A little story and then I'm going to end. The high school that I attended, I don't know what goes on here in Naperville, but the high school that I attended, it was one of the things that happened every year. There's a group called the American Field Service, AFS. And it's an organization that would have U.S. seniors in high school go to some school, and from some other international, and some other international person would be invited to come to your school. So like a foreign exchange, for different reasons. So when I was a senior in high school, my mother had signed up to be the receiver of someone from AFS. So the person that came was from Japan. His name was Ken Ijiri. Name still is Ken Ijiri. And he was brilliant. And he was bored because the schools in America didn't match his brilliance. And his particular brilliance was in the field of mathematics. Something like Sadaputa's field was also mathematics, it's very empirical. So I hadn't heard from him. He kept in touch with my mother, but one year through my mother, I was invited to host him to visit in New York City because he wanted to visit the the Statue of Liberty. And he knew I was in New York. So he came and I asked, so we were riding in the subway going to the Statue of Liberty because I'd never been to the Statue of Liberty, although I lived in New York. But I knew how to get there, so we were in the subway. And I asked him, what's the current situation with your occupation? He said, I just finished my third PhD. First was in mathematics, second was in physics, and the third one was in biochemistry. He did the third PhD in biochemistry in the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. And I asked what was the subject. The subject was the cell division of frogs. Put together math, physics, and biochemistry. So his assignment was to study how does one cell of a frog become two cells. How does it happen? With those math. I didn't ask him what his conclusion was. I asked him, what if the way that it happens has something to do with the spirit soul enters? Open-ended question. He gave a very honest answer. He said, as a scientist, we can't even talk about that. I mentioned it yesterday. In science, there's you just don't talk about that topic. The soul and God, and just not part of science. Now, he was honest enough to say, instead of saying phooey, he just said, as a scientist, we can't talk about it. And I was impressed. I mean, that's honest. It's honest. You can't talk about it. He didn't, that was it. I didn't say that's the cause, and he didn't say, do you believe that's the cause? It's just end of discussion. You can't talk about it. As a scientist, you can't talk about it. So there's boundaries, like rules of the game for science. And then for spiritual topics, we have some boundaries. It's like when there's authority from the Vedas on something, just like this previous statement that I said, I'm not going to touch this one, where Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, according to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, the Brahmakalpa in the beginning of the first half appears to be the Padmakalpa, which sounds like in contradiction to what Srimad Bhagavatam is saying. He doesn't elaborate. Where did Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur come up with this idea? Must be something from the Vedas. I came across this recently. He's not going to say something without the authority of the Vedas. And the language that Prabhupada uses is, it appears to be. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur said, according to him, the Brahmakalpa in the beginning of the first half appears to be the Padmakalpa. So they're interchangeable terms according to some reference from the Vedas. The idea is, in spiritual circles, we don't make statements without support of those statements from the authority. Because how can you know anything anyways? That's one of the Tattva Sandarbha topic, if you're interested. It's in the first part of Tattva Sandarbha, Pramana Kanda. How do you know anything? He starts, how do you know anything? What to speak of knowing transcendence? How do you know anything? Who can definitively say anything? You have to have evidence to say anything. So then there's types of evidence, and what to speak if you want to know Krishna. That's the means to know Krishna. Now, according to the evidence, the pramana, bhakti is the means. But, the bhakti realization must be also supported by Shastra. Okay. Nice chapter. Look, little technical. Discussion?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. This morning discussion is very fascinating. very beautiful and very helpful, particularly this last aspect you're touching upon. For me, it's very binary. Either I'll have to use my intelligence and understand completely. If I can't get it, forget about it, shut off, and just keep going. But it's very beautiful that we have to use, it's not a blind faith. It is a spiritual science. We have to use our intelligence, but also understand to what extent we have the capability to understand, and then take the strength from the acharyas. It's very, very helpful, Guru Maharaj. Probably on that, one of the seemingly difficult to understand, I was hearing recently, this 9th chapter of 3rd canto, Lord Brahma wakes up, he takes birth from the lotus stem and prays to the Lord for the knowledge, empowerment, and so on. I thought he's taking birth at the beginning of his life, but apparently looks like it's the beginning of his day. So every morning, it's like quote unquote dies and wakes up and keeps going through his creation and then goes back. It's really difficult for me to understand.
I'm not sure you've expressed it the way that it really is. When during his night, it's not that he dies, it's his night. And during his night, there's a partial devastation. He wakes up, he has to recreate that part that was partially devastated. He has some service every day. No. He wakes up. And he does his sadhana. And then he does his seva. When he dies is when the whole universe is withdrawn. That's the end of his life. And he goes back into the body of Mahavishnu, or wherever he goes. Is that right?
Yes, Guru Maharaj, that's what I wanted to clarify because I wasn't...
So there you got it. Anything else?
The other aspect is, he has such a long duration of life, and he keeps doing that day.
Well, he doesn't have to be the same person, the same jiva. He can be another jiva that takes the post to the next universe. He goes wherever he goes. It depends on, same thing it depends on for you and me. And there are different Brahmas that have different destinations. Different souls take the post, it's because of post. Take the post of Brahma from different, sources or places from which they come. It's complex, but go through the exercise of studying that topic if you're interested in that topic, and you'll find there's a lot. And the ultimate controller is the one independent Supreme Lord, and Brahma is dependent. Okay? Behind you.
I was listening to a seminar that Radhika Raman Prabhu gives, a yearly seminar at ISV. And this year the topic was engaging with the world. And he listed out different points that Vaishnavas aren't engaging enough with the world. And he quoted one scholar who said, oh, look at Vaishnavas. They worship a God who sleeps through creation. I was hoping he would, counter that in the seminar, but that didn't happen. But I was wondering if you have a comment. I don't know who the scholar is and what exactly he said.
I don't either. It's not just nidra, it's yoga nidra. It's mystic slumber. He's not zonked out like we. It's not like, we forget our daytime when we're asleep at night. He's not like that. His yoga nidra is he's enjoying, according to Srimad Bhagavatam, he, Mahavishnu, is enjoying pastimes with his internal potency internally. She's not manifest externally. There's no Lakshmi or Rama Devi at his feet, massaging his feet and doing what she does for other forms of Vishnu or forms of Narayan. She's inside, whatever that means exactly. She's within the form of Mahavishnu, and they're enjoying pastimes together. You're not zoned out, sleeping through creation. So now, what you might ask, or Radhika Raman might ask, or somebody might ask, oh, could you describe those internal pastimes with Mahavishnu that Rama Devi is doing? I don't have that answer. There may be some explanation somewhere. I don't know what that answer is. But it's not, some scholar saying he's asleep. He sleeps through creation. It's going on by his indication and the indication of his expansions. And the expansions are non-different from him. They just have different functions in the matter of creation. He's not asleep in the normal sense. Yoga nidra. Something else?
You have something? Hare Krishna Maharaj. In the spiritual world, time has got the quality of not passing away even for a fraction of a second, right?
Go ahead.
And so here it is said that in the spiritual world, there is undoubtedly time.
Yeah.
But it has no control over activities. So what does
that mean?
That?
It's lila. What's the internal potency? Agency by which activity takes place. I don't see the problem. There's no control of time because, we say it conversely, here, time controls stuff. You can't just I want to build the temple, and you wave a magic wand and the temple is built. Maybe somebody can do it, but we can't do it. But even that, let's say Brahma creates, it takes time. And etc. It's dependent, the resources, the intelligence, the endeavor, the everything is all dependent. In his case, it's independent. So there's activity, yes, but there's no passage of time. So the activity isn't dependent upon time. What's it dependent upon? The Lord's will. He doesn't need time to do stuff. For the mature creation, it's just part of the rule. Like someone was asking, why is time cyclical? It's just the Lord's plan. It's part of creation, maintenance, and dissolution. 3 modes of nature, and gives everybody something to do. More? Okay.
Guru Maharaj, within the material realm, the personality whom we know has the most unfathomable, puzzling scales of time is Lord Brahma. And now hearing about how insignificant in the grand scheme of things his lifespan is, just a breath of the Lord, is a very sobering understanding.
Yeah.
It helps to bring some perspective for us in our lives, where there's reversals or there's negative emotions, and we're so caught up in that.
Beyond the mind's capacity to fathom doesn't mean it doesn't exist, because we can't fathom it.
So, sitting in a class, it's really easy to have this perspective on like how insignificant are our
And
moments.
then
of
comes
struggle.
life and we become very significant.
Yes. And so I'm wondering, what does that cultivation look like in the moment of struggle? Having this perspective on, this too shall pass. Like this.
It's Krishna's mercy. And one becomes eligible in different ways for Krishna's mercy by cleansing and qualifying the seat of consciousness for Krishna's mercy, and then it can sustain even through crisis or trauma or something difficult, something even something pleasant. The flip side, one can become forgetful just because it's really nice. So it's Krishna consciousness. It's in short, having the mercy of Krishna, that you're, there was a phrase about Queen Kunti. You remarked on it, I think. Someone did. Completely dependent. If you're completely dependent, it's not circumstantial, it's completely dependent. Completely dependent doesn't mean you're a wimp. It just means whatever it is that you think and feel and will and do is dependent. And such personalities Krishna works through to do what he wants. And then there's people that have what they want, and then they get a chance to do what they want. He works both ways for him. But the happiness, sva sukhatvam, the happiness of the living entity is made available for those who are feeling completely dependent, not feeling. Their consciousness is completely dependent. That's advanced. Krishna consciousness. So, you want to say anything further?
The last slide you presented yesterday was just like brilliant, a Prabhupada's statement of dependence and valor, and how Prabhupada's life was such an example of that. It's just like mind-blowing.
And especially when we're mindful, as you read, you can become more mindful of the obstacles that he met. And you're unflinching. And Krishna reciprocated. That Krishna reciprocated doesn't mean it always happened. I mean, what a classic example, because I spent so much time, so many times, the light of the Bhagavad. It never happened during his lifetime. But he wasn't disturbed, and it happened later. And it was even after his departure it happened later, but that's okay. He wasn't disturbed. It was an offering of service, and the result was up to Krishna, and Krishna didn't give the result, and he wasn't like, hey, Krishna, I did all this. Where's the result? Obstacle after obstacle after obstacle. Unwavering. Anything else? You have something? Online.
Sandhya Mataji's comment in Srimad Bhagavatam 4:24-50, Lord Shiva says that ripples created in the belly of the Lord Vishnu, is very beautiful due to his inhalations and exhalations. Considering how long it takes for the duration.
How long it takes?
Considering how long it takes for the duration of one inhalation and exhalation, how can one observe a ripple?
How can one do what? How can one what?
How can one observe the ripple?
This principle?
How can one observe the ripple That,
Ripple?
should I read again, Maharaj?
What's the ripple?
The ripple in the navel.
The what?
The ripple in the navel of the Lord.
Oh. You have to be there. Then you can observe it. I mean, that's one of the things that we heard in Queen Kunti's prayers is they see, but you know, you have to be qualified to see. So if that's your objective, and you die with that objective, maybe you'll get a chance to see whatever your mind is absorbed in at the time of death. Next.
This is from Gopal Hari Prabhu. Thank you, Maharaj, for answering my question yesterday about the relevance of Bhagavatam's science to the practical aspects of people's lives. Now, the question is, material science does not assume miracles, although it does not deny the possibility of miracles. In spiritual science, is there a methodology by which people can attain the same as that material science attains in terms of weapon, etc.?
In terms of?
Weapons.
Weapons?
Yeah. In other words, can we offer an alternative to material science?
Well, it's the same as we discussed yesterday and the same we discussed today, same point. There has to be a qualified person. And if there's a qualified person, they can do things that unqualified persons think is like fiction or imagination or not real. If I've understood the question correctly, it'd have to have the qualified person. For example, two for examples. By mantra, there's a Brahmastra. And Prabhupada has indicated Brahmastra is like nuclear weapon. But it can be manifest as a heat weapon by mantra. Or the second one is by mantra to ignite arani wood. Arani wood, from as far as I've understood, arani wood is a particularly hard wood. Like, you know, in the West it's oak or something like that, hardwood. It's really extra hard to ignite hardwood. So they use arani wood to see if the brahmanas by mantra can ignite it. Not like balsa wood or leaves or something. It's really difficult. So by mantra, so we have to have a qualified person. Thank you very much. Prabhupada ki jai.